All righty, so I'm going to jump right in and let Derek take over. So Derek is with Quest Trust, and he is the Senior IRA Specialist there. I'm going to let him introduce himself and give us a lot more information, and hopefully, oh, sorry about that. Hopefully you all will gain a lot from his presentation. So Derek, it is all yours.
Well, thank you. So guys, as I kind of go through some of this stuff, please ask questions. You can interrupt me. All right. That's the only way we're going to learn. There's too much information to go over. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go through a PowerPoint and things like that. I always find PowerPoints can be really boring though. So a little bit about my background is I did not start off in like self-directed IRAs or retirement accounts. I actually was in the military. I was a Apache mechanic, which was kind of neat. You know, it really was. But you get out of the military and guess what that gets you in the civilian world? Nothing. Yeah. So I was actually looking to be a real estate investor, but I saved up a lot of money in a retirement account through being in the military. And it's kind of what led me to this aspect. I'm also fluent in Russian. I can speak, read, and write it due to a very pretty girl in college. That was it. So if anyone out there speaks Russian, здравствуйте, очень приятно. Lastly is I'm going to be talking about today. I do represent Quest Trust Company. We are a retirement company, but everything I talk about applies to any retirement company out there. So you don't need to work with myself directly. You can find a company you like to work with. Obviously, I'm going to be biased and say that we're the best, but find someone that you guys like and can work with. I say that because I'm also on a government relations team. I speak at the Capitol to Congress on a quarterly basis about retirement accounts. So recently a new bill was passed labeled the Secure Act 2.0. You can see my initials on part of that bill, just as one of the ones that was reading it and kind of going through a lot of the approval aspects. So feel free to ask me any questions about anything as we go through this, and let's dive right on in. I know that was a whole lot. So I like to call this class, and I made it kind of just for this presentation itself, is the what screen do you guys see? Is that better? Bam. All right, I'm getting thumbs up. All right, so the real use for a self-directed IRA. Quick disclaimer as always, right? I can't give you any tax legal investment advice in this class, right? I'm only here for your guys' educational purposes. So please stop me if you have any questions so I can probably answer in a little bit easier manner for you. We're going to talk about some of the self-directed IRA basics, why it is so important to every real estate investor out there, whether you're a lender, a borrower, a fix and flipper, a renter, a syndicator, it doesn't matter. You have probably used a retirement account or can use one and you never realized it. There's also a lot of issues with them. So we're going to talk about the issues and how to get around them. And then lastly, how to get started using a self-directed IRA. So the first thing I want to start with is how the IRS views every type of entity out there. And the IRS puts us in two categories. The first one is a taxable category, right? Now, that makes sense, right? You guys are all taxable categories. We understand we have to pay our taxes. So what do you think the other category is? Non-taxable, right? So a taxable category, unfortunately, is where we always end up with doing most of our investments, and we never considered doing investments and having them truly be tax-free. Why is this? It's because you just didn't know it was an option. So what's a taxable category? I always say you, right? If you work a job, you have a W-2, you make your money, you have to pay your taxes. But if you set up an LLC, a C Corp, an S Corp, a trust, every time you set up an entity, these are extensions of yourselves, right? These entities you see here on the screen all have to pay taxes when they make profit. Makes sense. So when I say a non-taxable entity, what does someone think of immediately? Normally, the answers I get are like a church, a charity, a nonprofit organization, right? Maybe a hospital. All of these are considered non-taxable entities. But there's a lot more out there than you realize. Like a self-directed IRA really is a non-taxable entity. Your 401k is considered a non-taxable entity. There's things called QRP plans. These are non-taxable entities, and we can leverage each one of these the exact same way you as an individual do all of your current investments. So we're going to figure out how that is. Now, in order to do so, I always start off with what is a self-directed IRA? Is anyone brave enough to unmute themselves and tell me what it is? No takers? All right. So every time I ask this, it's funny, is a lot of people are like, oh, it's an IRA, you can do XYZ with it, and da da da. And they give me all sorts of answers. I've been doing this for several years. I have yet to get the correct answer because self-directed IRAs are fake. They are 100% made up. There is no such thing as a self-directed IRA. That term is a marketing term. The IRS, Congress, they do not recognize the term self-directed IRAs. So I always break it down to two aspects. I say there's two custodians. There's a public and a private. A public custodian is what you're all familiar with. Fidelity, Charles Schwab, Merrill Lynch, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Vanguard, it doesn't matter. If I have a retirement account on the public side, I can only invest in public assets. So if I set up a self-directed IRA on the public side, they'll let you self-direct it into stocks, bonds, CDs, annuities, mutual funds, etc. But on the other side of the fence is the private sector. So what is a private investment? Private investments are what everyone here probably already does or is considering doing, like real estate, right? Fix and flips, rentals, notes, syndications, joint ventures, it doesn't matter. But it doesn't have to be real estate. Private investments could be small business, right? Something that's not on the New York Stock Exchange, starting someone's new company. It could be you buying gold and silver or precious metals. It could be you investing in cryptocurrency, right? Anything like that, that's a privately traded investment. So there's not one that's better than the other, it's just different. If I have an IRA or a retirement account, a 401k at Fidelity, well, I'm going to use that account to buy Apple stock. But if I have a retirement account at someone like Quest, who I work with, I'm going to use that account to buy real estate. They each serve a purpose. So try not to think of these custodians as competitors. It's just one offers something, the other one doesn't. Does that make sense to everybody? See some heads nodding, like it? Good. Thanks for the participation. You guys are awesome. So what are some of the benefits to using a self-directed IRA? And the first one I always say is using diversification. Now notice I'm still calling it a self-directed account, but it's just because that's how we like to look at it. Now, if I ask anyone out there, if you have a 401k, if you have an IRA, I'll go, do you think it's diversified? Most of the time, most of you guys will be like, yeah, my retirement account, it is diversified. I have some in stocks and mutual funds, maybe government bonds, but all of these, remember, are on the public sector. Recently, we saw that public sector take a big dive down. So what did we see people's 401ks do? They get cut in half, right? They go down. So I always tell people, we don't need to move over that full balance. Sometimes people think you have to take that whole account and move it over. No, 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 no. Let's take some of that and move it to the private sector. Now we have money in public and private. You have real diversification because the market affects each one of these differently. The biggest reason you want to do this, though, is for the tax savings. If you've ever done a fix and flip, if you've ever lent money, if you own any rentals, every time you, as an individual, every time your LLC, every time your business makes profit, you have to pay your taxes. But did you know you could use your current retirement account, whichever one you already have, do the exact same investment, and none of the profit is taxable today? None. You can avoid 100% of the taxes. That is a powerful, powerful tool, and people don't realize it. But if the IRS is going to give you an entity that you can avoid taxes on, they're going to take something away from you, right? And what they take away is the ability for you to spend it for personal use. I'm not talking about investment use, but personal use, meaning I can't touch that money until I'm old. The IRS says old is 59, right? That's really not that old, but that's what the IRS says. So you can't pull that money out to buy a car. You can't pull money out to go on vacation. That's okay. You can always use this money for your investments. So what type of investments make sense in an IRA? I say not as much a fix and flip. I like to use it as an example, but fix and flips many times are money today. But what about a rental? Yeah, I might be able to cash flow the rental today, right? But I'm not living off that cash flow. Usually what's happening is the tenant is paying down the loan. I'm letting the house appreciate in value. the thought process there is I'm going to sell this house for at least $100,000, $50,000, maybe a couple $100,000 more in the future. Well, your IRA in this example, if it owned that rental, would be 100% exempt from capital gains. Look at that. No needed to do no 1031s, nothing. It's truly exempt from the taxes of owning that property. Right? I also like to call some other benefits, and I make this up as we go, but I say invest in what you know best. If any of you out there have a retirement account, does anyone raise your hand? I won't call on you, I promise. Quan, Preble, Yolanda, love it. Most of you guys have retirement accounts, but it's all sitting in the public market. Why? Because you probably didn't realize you could use that money and invest in real estate. You're on a call learning about investing in real estate. So why is it that you're taking the majority of your money and putting it into something that you're not familiar with? Usually when I call on someone in person, right, I'll be like, well, what's your retirement account hold? And I get the, I don't know, right? Some big stocks or small stocks, big caps, small caps, large caps. The hell's a cap? I don't know. And it's funny, but most people don't know what the retirement accounts are doing. But most Americans have more money in a retirement account than their own personal account. So it's kind of scary to think that, wow, you have a lot of money in a retirement account, but you don't know what it's doing, yet you're learning how to be a real estate investor. So if you're learning how to be a real estate investor, let's take your retirement funds and invest in real estate assets. You can be a lender from the IRA or your 401k. It doesn't matter. So right now on the screen, there's 7 plans that can technically what I consider to be self-directed, right? It's a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. These are the 2 most common, right? Everyone out there probably has a traditional IRA and they don't realize it. This is what your 401k, your 457, your 403b, your TSP, your TRS, your pension plans, all those accounts will turn into a traditional IRA eventually. Now, the Roth IRA is that one that truly grows tax-free for you and even your heirs when you pass. But you also have solo 401k, SEP IRAs, simple IRAs for small business owners, and even health savings accounts and Coverdell accounts for your kids. So you can have all of these plans that can be self-directed, and 96% of all Americans have one of these accounts and they don't even realize they can use it for real estate. That's crazy. So let's start using these type of things. Now, remember, I said all these plans can be self-directed. All these plans can avoid 100% of the taxes on any investment. So if the IRS is going to give you something that they know can avoid the taxes, they're going to put some big restrictions on there, right? And they say people restrictions, transaction restrictions, and investment restrictions. So for you as real estate investors, the only one you care about are people restrictions. And the IRS says there's very specific people your IRA cannot invest in. The first person, right, is going to be labeled a disqualified person. Hey, your IRA is disqualified from doing business with them. And who do you think that first person is? You. You can't use your IRA and lend yourself money. If you could do that, would you pay yourself back? If you did pay yourself back, would you give yourself a pretty good interest rate? It just doesn't make sense, right? But that's okay. It's not what you're trying to do. Most of you are trying to lend money to someone else, right? I'm looking to be a lender and I'll take a first lien position. Well, do you want to do it in your name or your IRA's name? It doesn't matter. But it's not just you. It's also this unique little list. Now, this list looks scary, but don't worry about it. It's actually really easy. All right. It comes down to you, your spouse, your parents, your kids, and their companies. What if I set up an LLC? IRS is not that dumb, guys. They know you set up the LLC, okay? Unfortunately, they're not as stupid as people would like to think. So I can't use my IRA and buy my parents a house and let them live in it. I can't use my 401k and lend money to my kids to start a business. That's okay. You guys aren't trying to do that. Very rarely are you trying to invest in those people. You're trying to invest with usually one another. Or you found a house, you want to buy this house, you're looking for it for an investment. You're not trying to invest in you, you're trying to invest in that. So don't let this stuff scare you. If you do enter in one of these, though, the IRS does call it a prohibited transaction. And they say whether you buy, sell, loan, trade, extended service, right, directly or indirectly, boom, that's what they call it as. Now, if you do this, I can't stop you. No custodian can stop you from using your 401k and lending yourself money. If the IRS catches you, though, they take away your entire retirement account. All of it. Gone. Now, some of you, that might not be a problem. But some of you out there as well, you've been saving up money for 10, 15, 20 years. And you're trying to do something shady, and then what ends up happening is you make a mistake and the IRS catches you. So before you do anything, I would say call an expert and ask them, can I do this? And it's completely free for someone like myself to come on in and just answer those questions for you. So now I've scared the pants off you. What can you invest in, guys? Anything. Literally anything. You can do single family homes, foreclosures, options, tax liens, LLCs, joint ventures, trust, secured notes, mortgage notes, buying notes, fractionalizing them, wholesaling notes. It doesn't matter. You can do it all. So now we understand what a self-directed IRA is, that it's technically fake. We know that it can avoid all the taxes on the earnings. Let's talk about some real issues though. And the issues come down to people don't know how to use the IRA. You're like, great, Derek, thanks for telling me all this, but how do I actually use it? I always say there's two ways. One is direct ownership through the IRA. The other is ownership through an additional entity, LLC, trust, something like that. So we're going to go through both of these. The second one is what I like to call checkbook control. So we're going to start with the first one, direct ownership. Here's you. You chose to set up an IRA. Well, once you set up an IRA, what does it mean? Well, your IRA really is its own entity. Your IRA will have its own name, its own address, its own tax ID number. It even has its own level of asset protection. Anyone out there have ever set up an LLC? Just raise your hand. I won't call on you, I promise. So doesn't that sound like your LLC? Your LLC has its own name, its own address, its own level of asset protection. It's the same thing. It's just we call it an IRA. Remember, your LLC is taxable. Your IRA is non-taxable. So this IRA can go through, it can buy a property, it can do a note, it can invest in an LLC. It doesn't matter as long as it's not your LLC. All that's happening here is your IRA will send its cash in exchange for the title of the asset. Now, if the IRA is the one that bought this asset, guess who makes the profit? Not you, your IRA. Notice you're still in control. It's still your retirement account, right? But all the profit went back to your retirement account, your IRA. This is why it is tax free. You never received the profit personally. People like this because now you can leverage the aspect of compounding interest to grow your money faster if you're not having to pay taxes. I like that aspect. So what's going on behind the scenes? Behind the scenes of a simple, basic transaction like this, your custodian, Quest, if you went with us, would stay involved. This is a very clean way to do an investment. Why is it clean? We get audited 5 times a year. That's right, 5. 4 times by the Texas Banking Division and once by the IRS. Imagine having the IRS look at you 5 times a year. Can you imagine that? It's obnoxious, right? But that's what we have to go through. This means looking at our books, not yours, right? It does mean it's going to take 24 to 48 hours to fund a deal. Now, for real estate investors, it's not a big problem. Very rarely are you trying to close on an investment in 48 hours, but it is something to take into consideration. I get to charge you a fee. If I'm taking on an audit risk and we're going to go through all these motions with you and answer your questions, I charge you a fee. I charge you a transaction fee every single property you purchase. Every single time you do a loan, I charge you $125 for every single one of them. Now, I always tell real estate investors if a $125 fee is what's making or breaking your investment, I'm going to let you know, probably not a good deal. If you're a lender and you're lending money, most lenders don't pay that fee. Why? You pass the fee off to the borrower. If I'm your borrower, right, and it's going to cost you $125 to lend me money, you're not going to pay that fee. Hey, man, you want to borrow my money? You got to cover that Quest fee. Is that fair? And if they can't cover $125 and you're the lender, probably something to be concerned with. So take that into consideration. That fee should never be making or breaking any investments, nor should it ever be hidden. A lot of custodians sit out there and they hide their fees, where we are very open about it. So let's look at a little bit more realistic example. And what I did here is I took 3 IRAs. I took maybe my Roth IRA, maybe I have a health savings account, maybe my wife has a traditional IRA. I purposely made them equal 100 grand just so we have even percentages, But let's say we did find a borrower, someone that wants to borrow $100,000. Well, I, as an individual, might not have 100 grand in my IRA, but I have, notice, a collectively 100 grand. Well, I can take all this money and combine it into one note. I can take all this money and combine it and use it to buy one property. So if I do this, what does it look like? Well, notice this would be your percentage of ownership of each aspect. My Roth owns 20%. My HSA owns 10%. My traditional IRA owns 70%. Let's pretend the note was 12%. It's fancy way of saying 1% a year, 12% annualized. That means on 100 grand, the borrower is going to make a $1,000 a month payment. Well, profit is split 20, 10, 70. $200 goes here, $100 goes here, and $700 goes here. Pretty easy. It really is. And this is a very common way to leverage not just your IRA, but your spouse's IRA. Maybe if you set up accounts for your kids, like for their college, or your health savings accounts, if some of you guys have those HSAs out there. So what are some good pros and cons to this? I always say pros being it's an easy way to bring money together, as you notice. A lot of times you have a lot of different retirement accounts, you just don't know how to use them all. Right? Well, notice it's a great way to do it. The IRS likes it. Why does the IRS like it? Because they're auditing us, not you. They're not looking at your books in this type of transaction. Because of that, it is a great thing if you are a beginner. Why? I get to hold your hand. Someone like myself is going to walk you through step by step the entire process. We're going to review 100% of your investment documents. If you're buying a property, the HUD statement, the settlement statement, the contract, right? If you're doing a loan, we're going to look at, in Texas, we use a deed of trust. Up there, do you guys use deeds, a trust for a first and second lien, or do you use a mortgage? I don't know what you guys utilize, but we're going to walk you through it. We're going to look at the promissory note. We're going to review it with you, make sure you understand it. That's why we charge you a fee. Okay, that's why it's great if you are a beginner. The cons, always that fee. Good God, probably never had someone tell you about those fees so much, but man, some of you guys out there are experts. You don't need me to hold your hand. All right, Derek, I know what I'm doing. Leave me alone. All right, you have to do my paperwork. If I'm holding your hand, I have internal paperwork for you to fill out. Lastly, Quest sees, or your custodian will see, everything that you do. Why is that important? Some of you out there don't want to hide your name. You don't want anyone to know any of your business. So what is the solution to each one of these cons? Is something that people like to call checkbook control. Okay, checkbook control is where we're going to, and I'm going to walk you through it, is something that can be very dangerous, but very powerful at the same time. Why? Is we're going to counteract every one of those cons. We're going to find a way for you to avoid 100% of our fees. I'm going to walk you through how to avoid every fee I charge. I'm also going to walk you through how you can have perfect anonymity and hide your name to where and nothing else is in the county records, and still avoid 100% of the taxes. But if I'm going to give you something that powerful, you need to understand that it's also very dangerous. So, same example, we're going to take 3 different IRAs. We already understand that if you have 3 different retirement accounts, and it doesn't have to be 3, it could just be 1. Option 1, you go and you buy your individual investment, buy that property, do that loan. But remember, we want you to avoid those fees. So what do? Let's set up something in the middle of the transaction. Call it an LLC, call it a trust. I don't care, whatever you feel more comfortable with. Right? But this entity in the middle would be the umbrella. This entity you guys see on the screen is the one that actually holds all the cash. So your Roth IRA in this example would own 25%. Maybe your spouse has an IRA, it owns 60%. Maybe your kids have accounts, it owns 15% of this said LLC. Now, is this the actual investment? No, this is not. So for what you see on the screen, I charge you a fee. But that's okay. This is one investment. I charge you $125. All right, I get it. Boom. We go through these motions. Now, notice I didn't say you set up the LLC. Who sets it up? The IRA. The IRAs are the one creating this entity. Are the IRAs real people? No. So how does that person actually sign a check then if this isn't a real person? Well, you have to have what we call a non-disqualified person be labeled as your trustee and or manager. Someone that can actually sign documents for you. Now, I always joke about this. I say, you see this in the movies. You see that billionaire walk in and someone's following them, writing checks for them. That's their trustee. That's their manager in place. Now, this person has no power over anything that you don't give them, right? Sometimes people will say, hey, should you pay him? You don't pay him. That's up to you. You don't have to pay him, but you can. Lastly, is this non-disqualified person should be someone you trust. It can't be you. It can't be your spouse, parents, or kids. What? It can't be my family? I didn't say your family. I was very specific with my list. You could leverage a sibling like a brother or a sister. You could use them. You could use an aunt and uncle. You could use another business partner, right? But you can't be you, spouse, parents, kids. Why? Because if it was you, could you just write yourself a check and go buy groceries? Absolutely. Could you just write yourself a check from your retirement account and not pay any taxes on anything? Absolutely. Remember, the IRS is giving you an entity that avoids all the taxes. So we got to play it safe. Now, assuming you have this structure set up the way I'm pointing it out here on the screen, remember I charge you a fee, but this isn't your investment. Now, this LLC that was created, this LLC has the money from the IRAs. The LLC has a bank account. This LLC can go out and do as many investments as you want. And I no longer have to charge you any fees for anything you see on the right-hand side of the screen. Doesn't matter what it is. You can now avoid 100% of my fees. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty powerful. But you have to go through the right motions to set this up. And you can see why the first method is really good if you're a beginner, right? This method is really good if you're a lot more advanced. I already own like 10 properties. I've already done 15 loans. I know what I'm doing, man. I know how to go through the asset protection. I have attorneys that we utilize. Great, let's go with this method. Hey, Derek, this is my very first deal. I've never done something. Well, let's not buy the semi truck yet. Let's just kind of easy our way on through it. So some pros to this. Easy to leverage multiple IRAs. It really is. It's really hidden as well. Notice we were able to remove your name because you can name that LLC whatever you want. You're also not labeled as the manager. So it's a great way to hide your name and remove it 100% from county records. And wow, is it cheap on fees. What are the cons though? Remember is that that non-disqualified person, legally, that person cannot take your checkbook, write themselves a check and run away. But physically, could they? Yes, absolutely. So you want to make sure you trust that person. It's also not the IRS's favorite method. Remember, method one, they audit us. They look at us. How often do they look at our books? 5 times a year, 4 times by the banking division and once by the IRS. So if they know this isn't your investment, who do you think they're looking at now? You. So this is why it's not the IRS's favorite method, is they know they have to take an extra step to look in there. Therefore, it can be a very dangerous responsibility, right? And you have to set up the entity yourself, AKA your attorney if you have one. So if you're going to go with this method, be very, very careful. Now, after all of this, the very first question I get from someone is, hey, can I be my own manager? Can I be my own trustee of that LLC? No, guys. I just spent the last 10 minutes telling you why you can't do it. And it's always the first question I get. Now, the reason, though, typically I get this question is you used to be able to be your own manager. All right. So checkbook control is up to this where you guys could be your own manager. And what it came down to was right here. Now, moving forward, I have everything cited strictly from either a law site or the IRS website. And I think that's very, very important to point out. So this is not opinion, or this isn't up for debate or anything like that. But this is IRS publication IRS revenue code 4975. Now, what was up for debate was section C, subsection C, and I have it highlighted up there with services. For the longest time, if you were your own manager of that LLC, was that considered a service to the IRA? So I see, is it Con? Juan?
Juan.
Juan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I see him saying yes, right? But believe it or not, a lot of attorneys said no. Why? They're not providing additional services, right? Honestly, all they're doing is writing checks. They're being a good fiduciary to their account. They're not writing checks to themselves. They haven't done that. They're writing checks for their investment. Why would they want to have someone write their own checks? And this was a debate amongst attorneys for about 20 years. If you want to look at the court cases, it was started off of a court case labeled Swanson versus Commissioner that passed in 1997. Well, in 2001, another court case came out labeled McNulty versus Commissioner. And guess what? They updated this section. And all they did was add that section right there, that the act by a disqualified person, remember, you're disqualified, who is also the fiduciary. Remember, you're a fiduciary to your own IRA, deals with the income or assets of the plan. Now, they say plan because I keep calling it an IRA, but it could be a 401k, it could be a 403b, it could be a pension, TSP, etc. So now they have it in plain English that you cannot hold that checkbook. You cannot deal personally with that directly in that income or assets in that way. So unfortunately, if you want to take method 2, you have to have that non-disqualified person there. All of this as well, as I've been talking, I've been saying, hey, look, we can use our IRAs, we can use our retirement accounts. But if we're using the retirement accounts, remember, we can't benefit from them until we're older. According to the IRS, it's 59. Well, that doesn't help me today, Derek. I appreciate that I'm doing investments. I appreciate that I'm growing my account. And I can see it getting big, but it doesn't help me. I need something today. I need something to keep the lights on. So how do I profit now? You profit by something I call OPI, meaning other people's IRAs. Now, when I originally made this slide, I guess I didn't know this, but OPI is a nail polish. My wife made fun of me. None of you guys knew that. I bet you all the girls knew that. So, but I've kept it up there. But leverage other people's IRAs. Is anyone out there borrowing money right now from a bank, a hard money lender? If you are, you could borrow money from someone's IRA instead. They don't need to pull your credit. It's usually more off a relationship based. You could leverage a sibling. Your brother could lend you money from his IRA. You could probably pay him a better interest rate right now than what they're getting in the market. In addition, could you secure their money with a property? Hey, bro, if I don't pay you back, you get to keep this house. If you are out there looking to be a lender, right? You've already done this. That's why you lend money. The fix and flip makes 50 grand on it. You only made 10,000, on a 1-year loan, but hey, you'll take it. You did less work. It's very passive. Leverage other people's IRAs if you're looking to borrow money. So if you want to go through these motions, guys, step 1, you have to set up a retirement account, right? You can email me. I walk you through it. It's real simple, right? I do charge you $100 though. Remember, your IRA is its own entity. Your IRA has its own name and address and tax ID number, its own level of asset protection, right? So I do charge you $100 to do so. Step 2, you got to fund it. How do we fund it? We typically roll over one of those old employer plans, like a 401k, 457, an IRA, you do a transfer, or some people just make a contribution from their own checking account. Lastly, you got to locate your investment. So what are you investing in? Are you buying a house? Are you being the borrower? Are you doing a loan? It doesn't matter. Let's figure out what you're investing in. So overall, that's all I have. I'm going to leave my emails up here on the screen right now. So that way I can kind of answer some questions and stuff like that. So let's see. Bam. Any questions from anyone out there?
First of
And I'll
all,
put my,
Derek, that was very comprehensive. I have never had it explained in that manner. So thank you so much. That was very good.
yeah, no worries. So I just put my email there in the chat box for everyone. I'm a free resource. You don't have to be a client of mine for me to answer your questions when it comes to these areas. Also, be very careful. Just make sure you're getting good advice and good education on these topics, because a lot of times I think there's bad info out there, and too many times they're giving out bad info, for their own needs. This usually comes from someone trying to sell you something. They're trying to sell you on setting up LLCs, or trying to sell you on why their investment's the best, or why you shouldn't put your money there because you're gonna have to pay taxes or something like that. Whereas I just walked you through why you wouldn't have to pay taxes, why you could do it. So there's a lot of good custodians out there that will give you good education and walk you through the process. So
Awesome. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes. So I am not able to roll over my employer 401k for my existing employer, am I?
this depends. So your current 401k, if you have it with an employer that you're working with right now, they put stipulations in there. The first one would be an age. Usually if you're over 55, they'll let you move it over, right? Because you're getting close to that 59 age, which is what the IRS says. So 55 and older, you typically can move it. If you are younger than that, right? And let's just assume and pretend you are. Well, then you have to ask what they call an indirect rollover. What this means is the money you contributed, they will let you move out to an IRA, not the money they contributed. Now, this isn't always the case, because what happens at a lot of employers is they are investing your money. And they put your money in typically either Fortune 500 stocks or annuities / mutual funds that they have control over. So if you cash out your portion, then what ends up happening is it's going to affect the whole portfolio. So the only reason they let you do that is if you separation of service, quit, fired, lost your job, whatever you want to call it. But a lot of custodians out there, surprisingly, they're not investing your money. They have it in those Fortune 500 stocks and that's it. So they will allow you to do that indirect rollover. So you have to ask them, hey, can I do an indirect rollover of my 401k to an IRA? You don't have to explain what you want to do with it. You don't have to tell them which custodian you're going to. That's going to confuse the hell out of them. Keep it really simple. Hey, can I do an indirect rollover to an IRA? And they'll let you know right off the bat, yes or no.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
So in the example that you gave, there were two examples. One was if you do the account where we go through without the LLC, and then you guys kind of help us out through the thing. But the disadvantage is that our check on every check or everything, all of our business out there's got our name and our account number on every check. Is that correct?
Sort of. So not quite. So when we set you up an IRA, the IRA is going to have the custodian's name. All right. And you can see this right now. If you guys have any retirement accounts, you go to Fidelity, Charles Schwab. It actually doesn't say your name right there on there. You might think it does, but it usually will say the custodian's name, FBO, then the client's name. So in our case, it'd be Quest Trust Company, FBO, which stands for the benefit of, then your name. What's nice about this is Quest Trust Company, FBO, Fidelity Trust Company, FBO, Charles Schwab, FBO, your name, anything like that. That's the name that will pop up in the county records, right? Now, they'd have to do a lot more digging to get to showing the full name, but it's just too long, unfortunately. So right now, if you go into your own county records, I bet you if you type in Quest Trust Company, will pop up and you can see an example of it right there, right? And you'll notice it looks like Quest bought the asset. I didn't buy it, one of my clients did.
And so, but if we do it the other way, we still have to pay someone. Either you're going to pay a fee. Either we can pay the fee to you or pay the fee to somebody else, because in other case, we still have to have a third party, or what you call a I can't remember.
Non-disqualified person. Sure.
So either way, you have to have someone else involved in the transaction, right? You can either
sort of.
Right.
So I currently have an IRA where I set up a trust. I chose a trust. I live here in Texas. Trusts are very popular and they don't have an annual reporting fee. right? A lot of states out there, like if you set up an LLC, you have to pay an annual fee for the LLC. Trust in Texas, you don't have to. So I set up a trust. I labeled my 18-year-old sister, still in high school, as my trustee. Now, I put my whole retirement account in there, and I call it a checkbook, check writing ability. It's not a checkbook today, guys. What is it? It's a debit card. All right, it's really a debit card. Do you really think I gave my 18-year-old sister the debit card to my retirement account? Or do you think that debit card probably sat in my desk? So think about that for a second. Next, I pay my 18-year-old sister $100 a year. Once a year, she goes, why did I get this? I said, remember, you're my trustee. Oh, cool. So think about it. Yes, can I pay that individual? Absolutely. Do I have to, though? Not necessarily. Remember, that person, in this case, my sister, I say 18 because I've been telling the story for a long time, but she's now 24. But she still doesn't have that debit card. So I always like to point this story out because ultimately understand that you're the one still in control. I could have chose not to pay my sister. I could pay her more. A lot of times you're gonna be looking for someone that you can truly just trust in this example. No matter what you do in real estate, there's fees, right? Whether the fees come from the title company, fees come from a hard money lender, fees come from your agent, for selling the property, for buying the property, fees for the survey, fees for the inspection. There's fees everywhere. So the key here is to minimize them as much as possible.
Right, but either way, because I have tried to set up a checkbook, IRA, self-directed IRA, and I didn't end up finishing it, and actually ended up closing the account because I got to the point where it's like, okay, we have this checkbook. Now someone needs to now someone needs to create the LLC, but they have to do it in a way where it's for a self-directed IRA. And I was like, so how do I do that? Oh no, you contact this attorney. I was like, okay, I contacted the attorney. He wanted $1,800 to do it. And I said, this is crazy. He said, well, you can just take it out of the account. Like, that's $1,800 to set up. And then they said, well, this was a couple of years ago. You need to hire a CPA to be and so I didn't end up going through with it.
Yeah, so Cammie, in this case, most people, unfortunately, what happens is you're probably talking to a salesperson, okay? They got to sell you on why that LLC method was the best method for you. All right, they probably got to charge you a lot more than 125 bucks in total. They also most likely get some sort of commission or something like that. That's why they refer you to a very specific attorney. Most likely they didn't give you a list of attorneys. Right. All of these things come down to someone selling you on something. In these exact examples, what was the overall end investment you were looking at doing? A note, a property?
It was going to be a property, but they had it said, well, it's like, what if you decide to do flipping? I was like, I don't know if I'm really going to do that because I'm probably just going to buy some things and let it sit. Well, it'll be at that time it was some properties.
Yeah. So and the example, if you wanted to ignore or take the LLC completely out of it, let's just use the IRA. Let the IRA take full title to it. I'll charge you 125 bucks, but we don't charge fees until after you close on the investment. Why? In real estate, a lot of times things happen, people back out. So we don't charge any fees till after the deal is done. Now, you know exactly what it's going to cost up front. When is your next fee due? When you buy your next asset. You're not going through the motions of LLCs. You're not going through the motions of contacting other attorneys and hiring other CPAs. We deal in all the 1099s, 5498s, all that stuff. So that's the aspect. When do you want that LLC though? Once you own 10 properties, 15 properties, you're doing a lot more notes. If you're doing more assets, man, it starts to make a lot more sense why you have a lot more risk. Usually when you're just starting off though, someone's trying to sell you on what worked well for the guy that had $1 million sitting in his IRA. That's not where most of us start off. Most of us are starting off like, man, I want to get my first wholesale done. I want to get my first fix and flip. I want to get that first loan out there. Don't, buy the whole semi truck. We just need to get a Prius first. We'll get to the semi. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there
I'm brutally honest too with people. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. In addition to the fee for for every transaction, is there like a quarterly fee or annual fee?
So I'm gonna go with the most expensive annual fee for tax reporting would be a flat fee of $350 a year. That's the most expensive one. So it can come out a lot cheaper though. So if you want to go with the most expensive way to do it, we're gonna go with $125 to buy a house, $350 a year for tax reporting. That's it. That's the first page of our application as well, so you can't miss it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Anyone else? Mike, I want to check out your podcast too. I'm going to follow up with you later. And Leanne, I already messaged you about the mastermind. I'd love to go up there and check that out as well.
Hi, this is Travell. I did have a question earlier. When you were describing the LLC part or trust, I'm just trying to understand. So, if Quest is the I guess the fiduciary or acting as that, there won't be an LLC created. You or Quest will be essentially acting in that capacity. So there won't be an LLC being the go-between because Quest is that LLC. Is that correct?
That's a great way to look at it. Now, we're not that LLC, but I like how you describe it, and that's a good way to look at it. So all I am is a bank, right? I'm the bank, I hold the money, right? You say, Derek, I want to invest over in A. I don't care what A is. Great, I'm going to send your money to there. If you want to remove me, you set up the LLC, right? And then you choose a bank that you want to set up that bank account at. You don't need to though. Does that make sense? So I like the way you described, no, we're not the LLC, but yes, we are that acting individual in this case, which is why we do charge that fee.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Understood. Thank you.
I'm a terrible salesperson.
Simone, you have your hand up. Did you want to ask a question?
Actually, I do. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm trying to figure out if you move your 401k to Quest as an IRA, what happens if you're still contributing monthly? Like, does that still go to Quest or if it's
Nope.
coming, directly from your paycheck?
No, yeah. So, and what you just described, most of the time, you're not actually ever going to move over a 401k or an IRA to someone like me until you have an investment. Now, it doesn't mean we don't want to set up an account because it does take some time to set it up, right? And we need an account to move the money into. But first off, you're like, hey, I found a deal. How much do you need for that deal? Well, I need $75,000. Well, guess how much we move over from your 401k then? We move over $75,000. Maybe an extra $1,000 to cover fees for several years. So you move over $76,000. There you go. But you very rarely are you ever going to cash out that entire 401k. Why? It's because, like you said, you're still contributing to it. Most likely that employer has it invested, right? Even if it is down right now, guys, the market goes up and down, up and down. It always does. You can wait it out. As you get older, you don't want to wait it out. That's why people get freaked out about it. If you're 20 years old, right, you're not worried about it because it's going to go back up. If you're 80 years old, well, get ready to cash it out. However, you don't move over that full balance and you keep that 401k active so you can keep making contributions over.
Thank you.
No problem. Good question.
All right. I have one more follow-up question. As far as using the self-directed IRA for buy and hold, is it any different? I know you use an example as a flip to where the money will come back quickly, but as far when it comes to something that will be utilizing funds at the same time as potentially having cash flow as well, does that work any differently? Are there different nuances with that?
The only difference is you can't spend the money for personal use. You can only put it back into the investment or buy a new investment with it. All right. That's the only difference. Everything else stays the same. Companies like ours, what we do is we have a platform already set up for your tenants. So they can make a monthly, they can just go right on our website, make a payment directly to your account, right? Without your information, without your first and last name, right? We give them your account numbers. That way they can put the money right in there. But that's it. right? And there's no fee to them, no fee to you, nothing like that. So it's just a normal tenant aspect. But difference really being you can't spend the money for personal use. You can't take that money and go buy a car. You look a lot younger than 59, so.
Okay, thanks. And then finally, for any overages, so say there's more being, it's a down year or whatever, things go, you're sucking more than you have in that IRA. I'm assuming you can do things outside of that to float it, or you're not restricted to just what's in that IRA to mitigate issues that come up.
Sort of. So when you say restricted, do you mean restricted via investments or restricted on what you can spend it on as far as?
No, like as far as the actual asset, if you improvements or.
Oh, no, yeah, you can do all that. We have people that do Airbnbs, use their IRAs then to buy the couches, right? Replace the roofs, fix up, whatever it needs to. IRAs that pay the internet bill for those Airbnbs, pay the electric bill, that's all normal. The IRA, even though we're calling it an IRA, it's just an entity, right? Okay. That's all it is.
Is there a fee? I'm not sure if you cover that part, but is there like a penalty or a fee for using that IRA fund?
Not a penalty and
investment?
no taxation. All right. The only fee is when you're leveraging myself, right? And you're like, hey, Derek, I want to buy this house. Can you work with the title company? Can you work with the agent? Can you do all this? Yes, I do charge you a fee for that. That's the 125. But we only charge that fee after you closed on the investment, because in real estate, a lot of times people can back out. But there is no fee.
So an example you gave.
Sorry.
Okay, so there's like what you just said earlier was as far as you can use the IRA money to fix up your property, right?
So you can't fix up your property. You can't fix a property maybe you already own.
The
right?
investment. Or the investment that we're speaking of.
Oh yeah, for the investment, yes. The IRA can absolutely fix up the property.
Okay. Okay.
You guys have already done this and you don't realize it. If you have a retirement account and it sits at Fidelity charges fees, right? Their fees, though, are based off what you make on your investments. If you're making usually, let's just call it 6%. Typically, you're actually making 12%. Where do you think that other 6% went? It went to them. That's not bad, though. Don't be upset, right? They're the ones doing all the work. They're the ones investing your money. They're the ones that are covering those other attorney fees and finding those annuities and mutual funds and buying the stocks, selling the stocks. Well, when you come to someone like Quest, I'm not going to do anything. I didn't find that house you wanted to buy. I didn't vet the contractors. You found it. You fixed it up. You flipped it. You put in tenants. You vetted the tenants. You hired a property management company, whatever it is, So because of that, instead of paying me those fees, right, that 6%, we're using that 6% that we just mentioned to fix up the house, to buy those couches and pay the internet bill and whatever else it might take.
Any other questions? Rodney, you have your hand up?
Yes.
Go for it.
Derek, great
That's so polite.
You mentioned utilizing other people's money. Do you work in a capacity where you put us together with people that have a self-directed IRA that they want to invest?
Yes, so I do my best to. The problem is I'm in Texas. Where do you live?
I'm in Maryland.
There you go. So how do I have to do it? I can only do it online. So we do it once a month. We call it a virtual happy hour. And what we do is we bring in and we just market it out to not only our clients, but everyone else. On average, there's probably about 100 to 110 people on there, give or take. And everyone can come on and do a 30-second deal pitch. So you can say, hey, my name's Rodney. I'm looking to borrow some money. I live in Maryland, so I'm going to be using the money for properties out there. Give me a call, give me an email. I'll put my information in the chat box. Boop. Next person goes, hey, I'm a contractor. I live in, Oklahoma. Hey, I'm a syndicator. I'm raising money for a multifamily deal. Hey, I'm so-and-so. The problem with that is, yes, can you get lucky and find someone? Absolutely. but nothing beats the true in-person networking. Nothing will ever beat that. Something like when Leanne was just mentioning her mastermind. Getting in front of more people personally, it's usually the best way to find true private capital. We're not talking going to the private lenders, the hard money lenders or anything like that, but real private capital comes from personal relationships, right? I have, I think in the last 6 years, I've done 37 private loans. 37. Guess how many borrowers I have? 3. Why? Because I trust them. They do the deal, they get it done, boom, it comes back. It gets to the point I quit vetting them, which is terrible. You know, it's like, hey, I need money real fast. I'm like, all right, cool, send it over. Right? They know what I charge and everything else. But that comes from us doing local business, right? I, as an individual, will only lend money within a 1 hour area from where I work and or live, right? Boop, 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 any direction. Why? If something goes wrong, I can go down, I can deal with the foreclosure, I know what to do. Like, you're a good looking guy, Rodney. I'm not gonna lend you money in Maryland because if something goes wrong, I don't have boots on the ground. I can't get out there. And so even with you joining the virtual happy hours, I'd love to see you on there. Can you get lucky and deal pitch and maybe find a good lender? Oh yeah. But nothing will ever beat that in-person, experience.
Well, I deal in notes. So I own 3 in Texas. So.
Well, there you go. So.
Okay. You
Yeah.
have that information. I can email you.
Yeah, here. Yeah, just send me an email and I'll send you a link over to everything that I have for you. I'll put it right. I'll Teams you or put it in the chat box personally, Rodney.
I've actually sat in on a couple of those networking sessions and they're really great. I found myself wanting to invest with some of the things that other people were doing, but I've also made connections with people who were doing some note investing because there were about 3 or 4 other people in the group who were making announcements and saying they had this inventory, they're trying to move it. They originated notes and they were trying to sell them off. So it's still a great place to go, even if you're not making that personal connection, which is great to do, Derek. And that was a great plug also for our mastermind meeting for doing some in-person networking, because I mean, it is a relationship business that we're in, right? That's
absolutely
person to person is what it is, but it is still a great opportunity when you do that networking to kind of connect and find other people in other areas.
Nothing will ever beat the in-person networking masterminds and getting good info. So Rodney, email me what you're just looking for, just bloop, bloop, and then I'll add you to the calendar and stuff, and we'll see what we can do. Okay.
Derek, is there any restriction if I wanted my IRA to invest in an asset, but I didn't have enough money in the IRA to acquire that asset completely? Could I then contribute from my LLC, say, to that asset and we split the profit share?
Yes, you can. So you have to be very careful. Now, if we went back to my presentation, remember I was like, oh, I showed that I partnered 3 IRAs together
Right.
and they each own a percentage. Well, you can replace an IRA with you,
Okay.
if you like, or your LLC.
Okay.
Now, people sometimes mix that up because I said, hey, look, you can't invest in yourself, but you're not investing in yourself. You're on the same side of the fence. You didn't lend you money, right? You each own a percentage of the same asset.
Right.
So all profit and worse, all expenses have to be split accordingly. This works really good with notes, really bad with physical real property.
Yes, exactly.
Right? A note, someone makes a payment, boom, payment split, not a problem. But imagine like, oh, we got to replace the roof.
Right.
All right, well, $10,806 comes from your account and the other $9,487.19 comes from the IRA. Like, it's just weird. And the contract's like, what are you doing?
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to know if it was that's how I was thinking it might work, but I wanted to hear that. So, but yes, it's good to know that it can be done, but that's kind of a caveat to it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
No worries.
Any other questions?
Well, Tanya, I appreciate you having me on.
I
really
appreciate
do.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was really great. And I think I just got text messages. Some people had to jump off, but they were like, this is excellent.
Yeah, I had a lot of people private message me too. So I was like,
Good.
oh,
Good.
Yeah, this
That is
is
wonderful.
really good. I didn't imagine I was gonna get this gem. Sorry for cutting you off.
No, go ahead.
No, it just blew my mind. Like, wow, that money's just sitting there. That's all.
Yeah. Cool.
So yeah,
I'll put my
you,
email in the chat box one more time if anyone wants to reach out and just let
yes.
me know. My name is really weird too, so make sure you spell my name right. You guys will see it here in just a second. It's super weird.
I had to double check it every time I emailed you. I was like, just make sure you spell it right.
Yeah. 2 E's, 2 R's, a C, a K. I think my dad was drunk when I was born or something. Oh. Believe it or not, I'm going to go teach a class right now on the new up and coming bills at Congress on the Secure Act 2.0 and stuff. So if there is no other questions, I'm going to jump off.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time, and hopefully we will be in contact soon. And thank you for all of this information. You did a great job. Appreciate you.
You guys are also very polite. This is like the first Zoom meeting I've ever done where everyone is like super, super polite, like raising their hand. Usually people just blurt out stuff. So you guys are awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Cleo, I see your question stuff, and I'll send you an email right away, Cleo. I got you.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Derek.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye-bye. If
Thank
there
you.
aren't any other questions or concerns, I invite you all. We will be meeting again next week. I will be sending out emails for the in-person event as well as the February already, the February online meetup. And if you have any questions, you all can feel free to reach out to me. I'm dropping my email in the chat. Michelle, how are you?
Hi, I'm sorry. I just saw this in the meetup. I was hoping you guys were still in session.
Oh, we're just ending up, but I'm glad that you jumped in.
No, and I wanted to get oh, you put the website in there because I wanted to see your classes, your course.
Oh, yes. Let me put the website in there. And I'm also going to give me a couple of days, but I will have this recording on our YouTube site, and it'll also be on my website so that you all can view it, or if you can view it, Michelle, or if there's anything else you all want to, do a rerun of it.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you all. So if no more questions, you all have an awesome rest of your January. We will see you all in February for our meetup, as well as for our in-person if you can make it. So thank you all so much for joining. Have a great evening.